Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Think Tank Sports. Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen. Check us out on all of the socials: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And listen to us on Anchor or wherever you get your podcasts, because we're out there for your listening ears. And watch us on YouTube as we continue to do this wonderful YouTube thing, and subscribe and let us know how we're doing here on Think Tank Sports, wherever you are consuming our content. But here we are, Mike. It is time to talk about the NFL, and wow, what a week it was. We can remember back to early in the year, we had a couple of weeks that were kind of like this with close games, but I think this week, I think you have to say, was the best week the NFL has had this year.
It certainly was the craziest, Dave. Best, yeah, probably from an entertainment standpoint as well. Spread out over, Saturday and Sunday. And the way that first game started Saturday with the Colts Vikings and the crazy comeback by the Vikings, it certainly set the weekend off, even though there was a Thursday game that we were just talking about. I don't think either one of us saw play of.
Yeah.
It is that time of year with concerts and just Christmas activities or holiday activities. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas to anyone listening. Happy holidays if that's your gig. But Dave, that game, 33-0, Colts in firm lead in the third quarter. Come out, at halftime. And this is why, folks, you may not want to hire someone as a head coach right off the broadcasting booth with no experience. You want to say head coaching, doesn't matter. I think that's very false. I think coaching is very important. And you want to tell me that an NFL coach with some experience or a college coach wouldn't have been able to call timeouts or make some substitutions or nuance things that even call different schemes. I mean, they just kept running that same shell defense. The Colts did it. And in the second half, the Vikings just picked it apart, literally. I don't know. Did you watch this game at all?
I'm trying to think. I saw
this game posed a lot of problems in a lot of households over America, because it really was the last weekend to go Christmas shopping, and not have it be last second. And I'm sure there was plenty of spouses and significant others saying, let's go, let's go, let's go. It's Saturday. Why is there even football on? And, as a guy, you're like hanging on, watching this furious comeback by the Vikings. And it's like, I can't leave yet, honey. You got to give me another 20 minutes. And then it goes to overtime. It just caused a lot of strife around the country. But fortunately, the second game was a dud and you missed it, and it wasn't a big deal. But
no, actually, as I remember this now, I was at the Syracuse basketball game on Saturday during this time. So I'm checking in
with that
on the score. Yes, Cornell. That too. And just watching this and watching the score and telling my younger son, Josh, like, this is crazy. I'm like, they are coming back. I said, Josh, they were up 33-0 at the half. And I was like, if they win, the Vikings win, they're going to break the record for the biggest comeback in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
The Buffalo Bills way back in January of 93 against the then Houston Oilers and Warren Moon. And it's funny too, because
who was the quarterback of those Buffalo Bills that fateful day?
Yes, Frank Reich, which was interesting on multiple levels, because Frank Reich owns, I think he still does, the greatest comeback in college history when he was at Maryland. And then he does the one in Buffalo in the NFL. And then I was like, oh, he's not the coach of the Colts anymore, but his
do you think he enjoyed it? Probably not. He probably still cares deeply for those players.
He probably had a tough time with the players part of it, but he may have taken some satisfaction in that.
Sure.
But just crazy. So earlier, I think it was earlier in this last week, I got talking about this Bills game, and we actually watched some, like, a full highlight reel of the game, which was a
Wow.
good portion of like the plays and all of that. And one of my kids reminded me of, that's funny, we were watching that game just last week,
Yeah.
talking about the Bills Oilers comeback. But yeah, so I didn't see any of this. I'm just watching the stats on my phone because Syracuse was in blowout form in the second half against Cornell. And ended up pulling out a 15-point win after being down 9-0 and 17-6. They clamped down. There's my Syracuse piece. There's
All right,
still more. There's
I'm
still
sure.
more Syracuse to come later in this podcast. But anyways, yeah, just what a comeback by the Vikings. They have 11 wins. 10 of them have been by one score or less. 10 of their 11 wins. So you could say what you want. The Vikings, they're a resilient group. They're not going to get, flustered if they get down in a playoff game. But I just can't say this Vikings team is great because they're so inconsistent, even though they're 11-3.
Right.
I have uneasy feelings about it. I'd be curious. I have a couple of friends who are Vikings fans who seemed to have liked this, but my guess is if you put them aside in a quiet room and just talk to them, they would be afraid as far as this goes. Minnesota has only scored 2 more points than they've given up all year.
That's true. The point differential certainly is a joke for sure.
Yeah.
And the Vikings, perennial 8-8 or 8-9, I guess now, or 9-18.
Yeah.
So sure, the ball bounces one way or the other. Any of these other seasons, are they this good in record, or are they truly a mediocre team? And the other thing is, the detractors will say, their losses are against the only good teams on their record, and their wins against the bad teams. They lost to the Eagles, the Cowgirls, and the Lions. They're all playoff teams for sure.
Wait, what? The Lions are a playoff team? We'll get to that.
Kind of. So I still kind of believe in this Minnesota team, Dave, and I know it's fool's gold, and I know I've fallen for it in years past, especially with their offense. But this game in particular did not change my opinion about either franchise and the direction they're going.
No,
Jonathan Taylor gets hurt and is out for the season.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't have a long-term effect on his career. Probably good he's not playing his last 3 games for him, but he's already hurt. So, and the Colts announced they're going to their 3rd quarterback, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. Somebody we all know isn't very good.
And someone
Nick Foles. They're going to Nick Foles.
Yes.
Big Dick Nick is getting back out there.
Big Dick Nick is back into the fold.
Back into the folds, yes.
Back in the saddle
So,
again.
If you need a fantasy quarterback desperately, he's going to throw bombs. If they can catch 1 or 2 of them, you score touchdowns, and you're that desperate, go for it. But
well, it's not like they don't have Chris Carter out there.
No. The second game, like I said, in America, all those fights about going out shopping and dinner and all that are over because you didn't have to watch that game Saturday, 13-3.
And if you did, you are a glutton for punishment.
You need a shower. Like most of the Deshaun Watson's happy endings, you need a shower. Not good. So Dave, the game of the weekend, in my opinion, if you like quality football, and not just close football, then your Dolphins Bills really just lived up to the hype, and Bills win 32-29. I'll just touch on the Dolphins a little bit here. 8-6, they get to break because Tua was hurt earlier in the season, and they had to play some. Skylar Thompson started a game. I get that. I just am not sold yet on this Dolphins team. I think everyone's telling me, they're going to make the Cinderella, Cincinnati Bengal-esque run to the Super Bowl. And I'm sorry, I don't see it, especially on defense.
Yeah.
And I still am not a Tua believer. I'll leave it at that. I'll let you take over. But what a great football game.
Yeah, it really was, when you think about the back and forth that went on. It never felt like the game got away from either team, which was a good thing, I think, for, entertainment purposes. You had some thoughts at the end of the first half because, the Bills take the ball and they go 12 plays, 82 yards in the last 3 minutes, right after the Dolphins had gotten a touchdown to get within one, and the Bills drive down and get a touchdown, no time left. And then the Bills get the ball to start the second half. And if you think about all those years with the Patriots, that was something that they were always so good at doing. They would get that touchdown at the end of the first half, get the ball to start the second half, and really pile it on.
Right.
And I've noticed that, the Bills do that a good bit here. But they came out and it was like 3 plays and out. And, then the Buffalo doesn't even score in the third quarter. The Dolphins get the, Jalen Waddle 67-yard pass, go for 2 and don't get it. I have issues there. I mean, it's their first drive of the third quarter. I get you go for 2 to try to tie it, but you have so much time left. So much.
These
time
modern,
left.
Nerd King coaches like McDaniel, King of the Nerds, they're just going to go for 2.
Yeah, every time. And so
Yeah,
they don't.
We got to
so
adjust our thinking, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. So they don't get that. Then they get, another drive there. Buffalo kind of stalls out, and the Dolphins, played a bit of good defense in the third quarter. But 3 straight, scoring drives, if you will, or they score 3 times in a row there, 29-21. The Dolphins, the Bills come down and in the fourth quarter and get a nice drive going, and Dawson Knox gets the touchdown. They go for 2 and Josh Allen gets in. And this is a crazy play because he jumps and he reaches the ball up and it gets knocked away. And, we're sitting there and watching. And I'm sitting in my living room with a friend of mine who's a Bills fan. Shout out to Chad there if you're listening. And we were just like, well, okay, there's 9 minutes left in the game. They can still get a field goal and win the game, because we really just thought it was a fumble. And, they start going through it. I think Gene Steratore
I think that's right.
was on there, and he's like, this is a touchdown. You see it. And I mean, obviously it happened, or the 2-point conversion, they slow it down and stop it, hit the ball, breaks the plane. So it ends up being a tie. And, then I think the Dolphins had a drive, and didn't really do anything with it. And I had posted this on social media. This is all you need to know right here. The last drive of the game, 15 plays, 86 yards, 5:56. The Bills got the ball back and ran almost 6 minutes off the clock. Just some big plays, the 44-yard run by Josh Allen. The snow had picked up in the fourth quarter, which we didn't see the snow really until then. Just kind of felt kind of fateful, if you will. But yeah, just a great football game. Again, the back and forth, the closeness of it, the fact that it was on a Saturday night, just everything just, felt like a very good game. And of course, for me, the Bills win. They, as we are in the Christmas season, they wrap up a playoff berth. See what I did there?
We all saw it.
Yes. And
You're
I know you're groaning, but that's okay. At my bad dad jokes. But the Bills clinch. And I'm not convinced on the Dolphins defense. I mean, again, I mentioned that they made some stops here and there, but
do you think the Bills or the Dolphins offense could do the same drive the Bills did? Do they have that kind of championship pedigree, get it done, tough yards? And that really comes down to the offensive line. So I guess I'm asking, do we believe the offensive line can run the ball and ball control when it's needed? We know they can pass block. They're good going backwards. Can they go forwards?
Yeah, it's interesting. I, I really thought or think, yeah, there wasn't a lot of Buffalo didn't really get to Tua very often. I thought the line, played decently.
Right.
They were able to run. I mean, obviously Mostert had a, 67-yard run.
Right. That adds to the
They,
total quickly.
they have tools to do it. I still think this Dolphins offense is set up to get big plays and, big chunk plays, as they all like to call them. And if they don't get them, they struggle. I mean, you look at, if you take away these two 67-yard plays, obviously you can't do that. But if you do that, I mean, there's 14 points off the board for the Dolphins.
Right.
And of course, this is against the Bills defense that's pretty good. But when you get to the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be, ready to be up to the task.
Also pretty good. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they have the ability to do it. Whether they can do it in the big moment yet, I'm not sold. And that comes back to exactly what you said, Mike, the questions about Tua in a big spot. He's still got to prove it in the playoffs, and we'll find out. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. He gets a lot of credit for what he did in college, but you got to remember, he got pulled out of a championship game the year later, and who came in to relieve him for Alabama? Jalen Hurts. So, everything goes full circle with the quarterback position for sure. He's accurate. I'll give him that. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
We will.
So that wraps up Saturday's action, unless you have anything else you want to add there, buddy.
Nope, we're good. Let's move on to Sunday, because Sunday was just utterly crazy.
Yeah, and it started with my New York Football Giants getting a victory. And it felt like two victories because of the previous tie 2 weeks ago.
Yes, that's where the tie actually helps them.
Right, against the Washington Commanders. This is, if you're waiting for a game as a Giants fan where you're just going to be comfortable and they're going to get up early and cruise to halftime and sit guys in the fourth quarter, that's never happening.
Delusional, you are.
This is the best game the Giants have played this season, and this is how they're going to win football games. Ball control, running the ball.
50-yard field goals from Gano.
Right. Defensive score, and just the opposite, the antithesis of what the modern NFL is, which is hurry up and, run the play quickly and 2-point conversions and all that. This is not how this Giants team is going to win. They're just not equipped. I mean, look at the wide receiver. I know I say it every week. Here we go. Isaiah Hodgins and Ricky James. Ricky James,
bitch.
Middle Tennessee State's own Ricky James.
Yeah.
Leading as a receiver again. So, I'm thrilled with this win. Huge division win.
Absolutely.
Obviously makes us in control of our own destiny. Really kind of even takes some of the mystery out of the end of the season, and puts the Commanders away. I think for the season, I think Detroit's going to catch them. Last week, I was worried that the Giants were going to be the team that Detroit catches, but now I think it's the Commanders.
Yeah, they don't have the easiest schedule down the stretch. I mean, they're playing the Vikings this week in Minnesota. Then they have the Colts at home, which I think that's winnable, and then they play at the Eagles, and the way the Eagles are playing, that very well could be a game that the Eagles don't need.
Right.
And I think if you're a Giants fan, you're rooting for the Eagles to win these next 2 weeks. As hard as that is for you Giant fans to do, that is the benefit, because then if the Giants need it and the Eagles can rest people and the Giants need to win that game, that's the way it's going to go.
That Eagles coach Sirianni is a little bit nutty, and he might just play his players anyway because they'll have the bye week. And I don't know that he's wrong in that. No. And it does have a little bit of vibe of remember, when we beat the 18-0 Patriots in the Super Bowl. We played them the last game of the season and did very well. Lost to them in the regular season. Obviously,
Yeah,
they
wasn't
finished
that
the
was
regular season.
Thanksgiving, was it not?
Oh no, it was Christmas. It was later. It was the end of the
Oh, okay.
season.
I thought it
Yeah,
was Thanksgiving, but I know it
no,
was holiday time.
and it gave us an inordinate amount of irrational confidence for that team. Really, we went on to win
Yeah.
the Super Bowl and beat them. So
I can still see Randy Moss running down the sidelines with that late touchdown.
yeah,
But it was close the whole way.
we have to talk about Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, we do.
And his coming out party. He got the trifecta. He got the sack, the fumble, the scoop, and the score.
Yep.
That was very nice early. And he was just a wrecking machine the entire game, except the last play of the game. He wasn't in. Dave Washington driving down the field. Well, last play for Washington. He makes a big play on 3rd down and goal. Remember, Washington's right down there by the end zone. And the last play is a pass to Curtis Samuel, broken up by Darnay Holmes. But the pressure wasn't from Thibodeau, it was from Ojulari. Thibodeau was out because he got poked in the eye. That's the second Giant player that's been poked in the eye this season, had to significantly miss. I mean, Bellinger missed a couple of games. He's not that hurt, but
do
still.
They need the
visors or whatever?
The visors, yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Let's do the LaDainian Tomlinson with the reflective visor there.
Hopefully they're not pouting on the sideline while their team's competing in a playoff game. But
yes,
asked after the game, he said Primetime agrees with me. I don't know what to tell you. I just had a big game and I felt the fire, the passion, and they kept trying to block me one-on-one and I was winning. And that was really it. He was a wrecking ball out there, and it was awesome to see, Dave.
Yeah, 12 total tackles, 9 solos, the sack, 3 tackles for losses. I mean, that's as good a line. And then you think about also the touchdown, as far as that goes too. It's
for a defensive pass
it's a great
rusher.
defensive line.
Right. So that being said, our secondary still banged up, still no Dory Jackson, and they, held McLaurin and Samuel and those guys down. Taylor Heineke wasn't able to make any of those special plays that he seems to be famous for at this point. And the Giants, like I said, take control of their own destiny. Saquon, man, in that second half was just all pro vintage. Running back that had the desire and the power, and one cut, and he started to get into his spin game a little bit, and which worries me because you want to spin it on those surgically repaired knees, but really had the stats aren't huge, but had a solid game, and like I said, this is how the Giants are going to win. This is a vintage 2022 Brian Dable. Daniel Jones, who was also undefeated against the Commanders, still 6-0-1 in his career.
Nice.
Huge win to start off the Sunday slate for me, Dave.
No doubt. I did not see any of that game, but obviously live vicariously through you. So all of those things
I appreciate that.
Go well. Mike, the New York Jets,
yes,
in a very, very entertaining game against the very game Detroit Lions. Mike, and this game was close too, and back and forth, tied at the half. Lions go ahead in the 3rd, Jets go ahead in the 4th. And then Mike, you get, oh my gosh, you just hate to see these things. Those plays are there though. You get it. The Lions are driving, it's 4th and 1. And that there's so many different things you can do on 4th and 1. And they do the complete play fake, roll out, Goff turns, and here's Brock Wright sneaks out, and there is nobody near him. And he, as Chris Berman would say, rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, look at him go all the way to the end zone. just under 2 minutes to go to give the Lions the 20-17 lead. Mike, and then you got to look at Robert Saleh and what in the world was he doing? So they
Is
get
this the timeouts
oh
issue?
yes, they get the ball back, and so like I said, 149 to go. They get the ball back and they have all three timeouts. And he doesn't use a timeout until there's 19 seconds left. There were multiple times, maybe you don't want to do it on that first play where Zach Wilson gets sacked. But short pass.
So second
to
down and
Wilson.
third downs, no gain. And then Wilson hits that bomb to Moore for 20 yards. It was a bomb for that drive. It was 20 yards on 4th and 18. Almost right before the missed field goal.
Yes.
And he doesn't even take timeout then.
No.
Until
no, it's timeout with one. Now that one was tough because, it was 40 yards. They had to run down there. Saleh, I'm okay with him on that one because he's running down the sidelines right next to the referee. I mean, he happens to be standing right where Moore goes out and he's calling the timeout. But I think, there were just some spots there.
Well, here's what I saw on that. One, it's Zach Wilson. If that's Mike White or Flacco, they're prepared because they've gone through that. That is where you see Wilson's lack of preparation and willingness to put the extra work in, because those are situations that the first string quarterback might work on in practice if they run a situational period. But the second or third string quarterback, you got to do that. You got to make those mental reps on your own. And so Wilson looked confused, and then Saleh looked confused because of it. And, they just clearly, those are the details that are going to make you a professional versus what Zach Wilson, unfortunately, his career is turning into. So I think that was a referendum on Wilson as much as Saleh to me.
Yep. And just so we're clear, Mike White was not out there because of the rib injury from the week before against the Bills. So Zach Wilson was out there.
And he's not playing tonight.
And Zach Wilson is playing again tonight in another huge game for the Jets against another team, against the Jaguars, a team that's very game. I guess we could go right to that game, Mike.
Yeah, were you surprised that Zuerlein missed the 58-yarder? I mean, that's not exactly chip shot.
Legatron.
But that seems to be something he's made consistently in his career.
Yeah, and he made the 60-yarder earlier in the year, a few games ago. I was a little surprised, but
it was left off the foot too.
Those are long, right? They're long kicks, regardless of how much success the kickers have with them. I think when you get to that, I'd love to see the numbers, and I don't have them in front of me. I was going to say 50%. It's probably not. It's probably 60, maybe 65.
Right.
The percentage
but not
there,
75,
but not 75 and not 80, like the difference of being in just that much closer. So, yep. Tough loss for the Jets.
Go to Jaguars and Cowgirls.
The Cowgirls. Oh yeah. I mean, what a tremendous game this was.
Probably was the better game of the weekend than yours, but I don't like one of these teams.
Yeah, for sure. But you look at this Jaguars team, they're just so game. And we've been talking about them, and we wondered going into this game about would they come back and would they play two good games in a row. It was a little dicey there at halftime. It was 21-7, but they kept at it, Mike. And Zay Jones gets a 59-yard touchdown pass, and Marvin Jones Jr. gets a touchdown pass. Zay Jones gets another one. and then the Cowboys put a nice drive, 13 plays, 75 yards, 7-minute drive, and score to go ahead with 3 minutes to go. And you're thinking, all right. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, you've given up 31 points, but you have some playmakers on defense for Dallas. 3 minutes to go. Hopefully, they're going to make some dents in that and be able to stop them. But no, they did not. And the Jaguars get 41 yards in a minute.
And Lawrence made some great passes.
Yes.
And he looked prepared and calm and collected, the opposite of Zach Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Trevor Lawrence, obviously, he's had some good games this year. He's had some games where he's had to, perform in tight situations, and he's done he's had some duds, but he's had some success. So
do you count this as rookie year? So last year was such a wash, or do you have to, maybe this is like year 1.5 kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, he definitely played those games last year.
He did, but
I just think, as we've discussed,
Doug
Peterson has made a big difference.
Right.
Remember,
we don't need to relitigate that.
No, and remember too that Travis Etienne got hurt right out of the gate last year too. So I mean, he's got some different pieces there. And then the Jaguars, yes, and they tie the game. They go to overtime, Mike. And what happens in overtime?
Dakota Rain Prescott rolls and makes a pass short left, and it gets like kicked and flung in the air, and the Jaguars intercept it. Jenkins catches the ball and rumbles 52 yards with plenty of escorts to win the game in overtime. Jaguars 40, Cowgirls 34. Crying and gnashing of teeth in the Jerry Jones box. Certainly the waitress at Perkins on the way home is in big trouble. From Jerry Jones. Oh, that's Tiger Woods, y'all. But anyway.
Either way, it was funny thinking about it from that perspective.
Great wing by the Jaguars.
Oh, yes.
Great building block for them. Even if they don't, and I don't think they're not going to make the playoffs this year, obviously, but just a good building block for their organization to get a win, which is a playoff solid football team in the other division. So the other conference.
Mike, it's very interesting. So we mentioned, the Jags are playing the Jets tonight.
Yes.
That certainly is a winnable game for Jacksonville. The next week they play at Houston. Houston is the worst team in the league. And then they finish up, Mike, the last game of the season at home against the Titans, a team that they only trail by 1 game in the standings. And they've already beaten the Titans once this year. So there is the potential for Jacksonville. I know Mike is saying he doesn't think they're going to make it. And obviously, a lot of things have to go their way, but they control their own destiny a little bit here. I mean, they certainly will need the Titans to help them out a little bit, but it is definitely, one of those.
Doable.
It's doable. Now the Texans also are. There is a chance. The Titans also playing the Texans this week, and then they play Dallas. And Dallas is going to need a win.
They're going to need a win. Although they're pretty locked into that. They might as well start scouting Tampa Bay right now, honestly.
Yep.
Speaking of needing a win, Dave, I think Mike Tomlin's going to do it again. They're 6-8, the Steelers.
Oh, no.
They beat a Carolina Panther team 24-16, and he only needs to win. Well, I guess he needs to win out to be.
He's got to win out. Yeah.
So I don't know. He's got the Raiders. He's got the Browns. There's another team, all of which are
the Ravens, the Raiders, and the Browns.
Ravens, Raiders, Browns, all solid teams that could easily beat the Steelers, but
Oh yeah.
none of which I'd be surprised if I saw a Steeler win next to in the win column. So
Yeah.
don't count Tomlin out yet for his never 500 or below. That's all I wanted to say. And then you just talked about the Texans, Dave.
Yeah, Mike, can we go back to the Steelers just for a second?
Oh yeah. Sure,
oh my gosh. Yeah. If you don't know, obviously the Steelers had one of the great dynasties in the 1970s. Their 4 Super Bowl wins stood as the benchmark for quite some time in the NFL. And one of their great players, Franco Harris, he of the authoring the Immaculate Reception in the 1972 playoff game against the Raiders, which, if you don't know, started it all, was the Steelers' first ever playoff win.
Wow.
40 years of futility by the Steelers until that day. Now, they lost the next week against the undefeated 1972 Miami Dolphins, but that's what got them started. Franco Harris passed away this week at the age of 72. Very sad. The 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception is tomorrow, Friday, December 23rd. They were doing a big thing. They're playing the Raiders this week. They were doing a 50th celebration, set to retire Franco Harris's number. And as Mike pointed out, and we were talking about this earlier this week, how is it that it's been this long before Franco Harris gets his number retired, and he dies like 4 days before it happens?
Yeah. Terrible job out of the Steelers. And I don't think I've ever said that about the Steelers ever about anything. They usually handle these things,
they're a model organization, class organization. So, and this is a tough pill to swallow for them.
Yeah, we maybe should have had Tom or somebody on to talk about, was there a rift between Franco and the Steelers that caused this delay? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's nothing I know of, but that doesn't mean that,
No. And I heard an interview with Franco the day before. And he was very excited to be there, and was talking about, some of the Raiders were going to be there too, and how he was going to be trash talking them because they feel like they were jobbed on that, because there was a rule back then that the ball could not deflect off of an offensive player and be a catch. As soon as it deflected off of an offensive player, it was an incomplete pass. So the Raiders argue that it deflected off of the Steelers offensive lineman, and the Steelers say, no, it deflected off of Jack Tatum.
Oh, Jack Tatum.
And so controversy begins.
Well, it's interesting, these crazy plays in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. I'm thinking of David Tyree. When you were talking about that, I was substituting Tyree for Franco and the Patriots complaining about whether that was really a catch or was Eli in the grasp and should never been a play. Mm-hmm. But the players that make these plays are quite often, middling players to begin with. Franco Harris had a decent career at Penn State. Huge Joe Pa supporter, by the way, even after the allegations. So take that for a grain of salt, but has to be said. And he was
a rookie. He was a rookie that year.
Right. And he ended up having a good career with the Steelers, but it wasn't, I don't know. I guess he is in the Hall of Fame, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame. 12,000 yards. The 4
so
Super Bowl
titles. The David Tyree of the 70s. I take it back.
No.
I won't make that comparison.
He is not, as far as that goes. But anyways, I think we're
we're
done.
About Franco Harris.
Definitely. Wanted to get that in there. We know we have Steelers listeners like Tom out there, and it's important. He was an impactful player on a great dynasty team of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 1970s.
Real quick, Bears continue to do what they want to do, which is lose ball games and still have Justin Fields look good. And then they did that against the Eagles, 25-20.
Yep.
Maybe they can give him some offensive weapons, especially at the receiver position, next season. Raiders, Patriots, Dave.
OMG. So I'm watching the Cincinnati Tampa game was on, right? No. Oh, maybe it was Cincinnati, Tampa.
No,
No. It was the Kansas City Houston game. Sorry.
Right. No,
I
that's right.
think.
Right, because Cincinnati, Tampa was at night, so it was not on the same time. Patriots,
yeah.
Titans, Chargers, maybe.
No, I'm pretty sure it was. Well, it doesn't really matter, but it was the game that
You're struggling, buddy.
Yeah, I am. That Nance and Romo were doing, because they started talking about, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, this," and they were like, "This." They were like, the Raiders just got this touchdown at the end, and oh my goodness, to beat the Patriots. And they were waiting for like a moment where they could stop and show the. And he said, "We'll show you the highlight in a second here, but oh my goodness, I've never seen anything like this." And so they go to it, and it's a tie game, and New England, Stevenson, who had a great game, 19 carries, 172 yards for the Pats, and he has this big run, which it's not all that surprising. The Raiders playing it back, and a lot of times you can get some big runs on those kind of plays.
So you didn't say, set the scene. It's tied at 24.
Yep.
Clock's ticking down to 0.
Yes.
As Ramondre Stevenson's running down the far side.
Right. So this is it, right? And
so they're going to overtime.
You would think. So Stevenson, gets towards the sidelines, and then pitches the ball, and he pitches it backwards to Jakobi Meyers. And Jakobi Meyers is a well-respected member of the Patriots.
Yeah, been around a while.
Been around for a little bit here. Is a good player. And I heard this argument after this, and I it certainly is valid. I think where somebody said, well, Stevenson pitches it to him, to Jakobi Meyers, and then he's like, oh, well, what am I gonna now? I got to do something with it.
He panicked almost.
And yeah, right. Even though he's a great, he's a good player, he's a smart player. But you get that and you go, oh, geez, well, I'm on the sidelines.
Oh, we're doing this. Maybe I messed up and I didn't see the clock. Or,
And so now, so he turns and throws the ball backwards, of course, because that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Right to the middle of the field. And who is standing there? Syracuse University's own Chandler Jones, who catches the ball, intercepts it, and then
steamroll.
Arguably my favorite part of the whole play is the stiff arm squashing of Mac Jones like he's a bug on a windshield, and he just pushes him down and then rumbles like 40 yards for the game-winning touchdown. Oh my gosh, what a just
it was more pathetic than, remember in the Super Bowl where the Patriots won 28-3 against, or were losing 23 against the Falcons and then won it. One of the plays that put the Falcons ahead, Brady throws an interception to the far sideline, gives some fake pursuit and a half a dive, and he just looks so old and just
I remember that. Oh yeah.
McCorkle Jones, Mac Jones looked worse than that. I mean, just run over, squashed like a bug, yard sale, whatever you want to call it.
It was great.
Bailey Zappi was laughing his ass off on the bench.
He's like, thank God that wasn't me out there.
And that's how the game ends, Dave.
Yeah, it ends that way.
What were they doing?
Again, I'm trying to, I don't remember who said what I was saying before, but just, Stevenson, first of all, why is Stevenson pitching it? And second of all, he puts Jakobi Meyers in almost an impossible spot.
Right.
I have to say, though, it's probably pretty clear that was not what they had drawn up. Because that
was a surprise to everybody but Stevenson.
And Chandler Jones.
Yeah. Good for him, and little vindication.
In the middle of the field. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, little vindication. Bengals continue to roll. The Buccaneers look old. I mean, old and ugly, and yet they're still winning that division, Dave.
They were up 17-0 in this game, Mike, and had played, arguably some of their best football of the entire season, this being the Buccaneers.
Yep.
And then played arguably some of their worst football of the year in the third quarter. 4 turnovers by Tom Brady. Yes, this is me doing the happy dance. No puke emojis. 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles. Boy, did he look old. And the only thing I will say about the Bengals is they are having, on some levels, like Minnesota, getting behind in games early and having to come back. The difference with the Bengals, they got themselves to the Super Bowl, and one of their great comebacks, obviously, against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game last year. I do like the Bengals a lot.
You can't keep burning the candle that close, though. It did it all last year, deep playoff run to the Super Bowl, then to do it again this year, it's going to rear its ugly head at the wrong time in the playoffs. Just is. We've seen that time in memoriam. There's a scenario, Dave, where everyone in the NFC South ends up 6-11, and the Panthers go to the playoffs. I don't know all the machinations of that, but just keep an eye on that. For 6-11 and the Panthers. I mean, the NFL would have to step in and do something, right?
You would think so. I mean, when you look at it right now, the Bucks at 6-8, the Panthers, Saints, and Falcons all at 5-9.
Right.
1 game back of the division at 5-9. If you look at the other teams that are close, I mean, Green Bay is 6-8. The Vikings have already clinched the division. Raiders are 6-8. The Chiefs have already clinched the division. The AFC South, just like the NFC South, 6-8 gets you, a game out, but Cleveland is 4 back. I don't even how the Bengals haven't. Because they got the Ravens there, but it's ridiculous.
It's ugly.
I don't even. It is ugly. It is ugly as.
Speaking of ugly, somebody pretending to be the Rams put uniforms on Monday night and lost to Aaron Rodgers and
the Packers,
Graybeard Packers, 24-12. I mean, what can you say about this Rams organization? They literally were all in last year and won it all. Good for them.
Yeah,
and they couldn't be more out on the end of this season. I guess I don't blame them. They got what they wanted. They knew they were going in with everybody hurt.
Yeah.
It's really now about rebuilding. And Matthew Stafford did say he's coming back next season.
Yeah.
Now, not that I'm saying that there's a quarterback controversy. I certainly don't think the mascot is the answer there in LA.
Or John Wolford either.
No. So do they move on? Do they, they find another Matthew Stafford type rolling around the NFL? And who is that? And 2, do they draft somebody, high up, make a trade, get up there? They're notoriously always handicapped with the salary cap. But, and then Cooper Kupp's injury. When is he going to come back and be the player he was before the injury? We certainly hope so. But Green Bay, just hanging around, Dave. There they are.
Don't like it.
Rasputin, is he really dead? Not Rodgers. No.
Yeah. Back to the Rams for a second, Mike.
Go ahead, buddy.
When you talk about, teams pretending to be the Rams at putting on uniforms, this Packers defense is not good. Okay. We've documented that. But the Rams, 156 total yards in this game. 156 total yards.
Wow.
Sacked 5 times, 8 penalties for 76 yards, and an interception. They had the ball, Mike, for 22 minutes.
Wow.
22 minutes.
Pathetic.
I mean, you're not going to win.
You're just not competing, right? There was a non-competitive roster, from the moment. We worried about this during COVID. Remember when the Rams had to start the wide receiver, a quarterback, and all of that?
Yeah.
And we worried about, the integrity of the game during COVID and roster integrity, I mean, the Rams are definitely pushing that border
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, it was
sure.
24-6, the Rams got a meaningless touchdown, except for me, because Tyler Higbee's on my fantasy team, like anybody cares, with 22 seconds left in the game. So that's, we've actually talked about this game way more than it deserves.
So tonight we got Jets Jags Thursday night as we're
Yes.
recording here Thursday afternoon. Big game for both teams, especially the Jets in their potential playoff.
Mhm.
Christmas Eve on Saturday, right back.
Full
Giants
slate of games.
Yeah.
Yeah, Giants
Great game
Vikings,
for the Giants.
huge game.
Huge litmus test for the Giants and the Vikings, really. You know, if the Vikings were to beat the Giants, they could say, okay, we finally beaten, a good team late in the season. So
yeah. And that's
that'll
one
be
of the
important.
that's one of the better matchups too. There's
Yeah,
some,
not a lot of great ones. You guys got the Bears. Do you have any trepidation at all? Like what the sphincter level must be like -3, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not overly concerned. I think the biggest thing is just how the weather is going to be in Chicago on Saturday, and what are the playing conditions going to be like. Not that I'm concerned about the Bills playing in adverse weather conditions, but they're saying it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Chef's Sea Chicken seems like it's going to be a fun game at 1:00.
Could be.
The Chefs always play to the level of their opponents. We saw it last week with the Texans. They barely squeaked out a win.
Did you see? And this is all you need to know about how horrible the quarterback play in the NFC has been this year. Geno Smith made the Pro Bowl.
Did he really? I saw the Pro Bowl was announced like right before we came on, so I didn't.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of glanced through it and I saw Geno Smith's name. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's had a decent year, but when you think about Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Stafford being in that NFC, and none of those guys make the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Crazy. What else?
I mean, the only game that really has got any juice to it to me is the Eagles Cowgirls at 4:25. Other than that, it's pretty mundane matchups except for Giants, Vikes,
49ers and Commanders.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's playoff implications.
Commanders need that game desperately.
Yes, they do. The Niners. So that'll be interesting because you've got 3 of the 4 teams in that division playing at this basically at the same time. That's at 4:05. Philly, Dallas at 4:25. That'll be San Francisco, Washington on CBS, and Eagles Cowgirls on Fox. Saturday night, as Santa's making his way around and dropping off presents, the aforementioned Steelers home game against the Raiders. Both teams 6-8.
That's got could have a great weather game. 11 degrees and snowy is what they're saying now for that game. So could be a fun watch that way.
And then Sunday, total snooze fest. 3 terrible games.
Which is fine for Christmas Day. Really.
Yeah, fine for Christmas Day. Look, tune into the NBA. The NBA has got 5 great games on, starting off with the Knicks, not in the Sixers. The Knicks start out the early slate.
Knicks Nets, no?
Maybe. These are things that we should probably know as we are here at Think Tank Sports. I got it here now. It is Knicks Sixers. Yes. And then you have Lakers in Dallas. I know this is that's NFL.
An early tip for West Coast. Yeah.
Well, Dallas is in the middle of the country.
Yeah, sure.
And they're in Dallas. And then Mike, one I'm sure you'll tune into a little bit. The Bucks at the Celtics at 5, Memphis and Golden State at 8. And then if you can stay up for it, that late on Christmas night, the Suns at the Nuggets. So there's a great slate of NBA games that, if you can't take the putrid scheduling that is the NFL on Christmas Day, feel free to tune into the NBA. There are some good games and a lot of good teams playing at that time. on Christmas.
That being
Mike.
said, Dave, unless you got anything else, continue to tune in with us. There will be no Lose With Us this week if you're looking for that. Stevie Covers needs to go back into the Batcave and do some calculations and figure out where we're at. So we'll be back next week with Dave trumpeting his 4-0 week from the previous week, where he just dominated us on Lose With Us. We continue to watch all these games, keep a watchful eye, but also take time to enjoy your family and your friends this Christmas and holiday season. Say Merry Christmas to someone you haven't talked to in a while, mend some fences, make this world a little better place for all of us. And that's what we can do to give back, not only to each other, but to, the world. So thank you for listening all year. We'll be back as soon as we can here at Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen as we strive for 5.